Well, slight technical difficulties there, and I think we haven't managed to get the LinkedIn connection going. So it is just on YouTube. Apologies for you if you're watching. Well, you won't be watching on LinkedIn, actually. So apologies if you are trying to. Welcome to our first live event of the year here at Robopack. Today I have some very appropriate guests with me, starting with Ronnie, the CEO of Robopack, and Magnus, the CTO of Robopack, and also Steve Weiner from GetRubix.com. And me, I'm Dean. I'm the host of this session, which is going incredibly well, as you can imagine. And I'll be asking all those difficult questions we've been collecting over the past few days. Let me bring the team into the room, or at least I'll try to bring the team into the room. Let's see how this goes. We have Steve.
Hello.
We have Ronnie.
Hello.
And we have Magnus.
Hello.
Hello. Well, that wasn't exactly as we planned. And in fact, I'm not even certain we're live on YouTube either.
We are live on YouTube.
Ah, perfect. Very good.
I just let all the LinkedIn folks know where to come watch us in case there's a,
That's very, very kind of you.
not a problem.
So while I figure out where we're live, thank you. Ronnie, thank you so much for joining. Would you like to give us a brief introduction to the new features that we released last week and what problem it solves for organizations?
Sure. We have a number of releases or updates in this release. First of all, we looked into how customers are using the product, and especially on our deployment intelligence and procedures. We have our wave system for patch updates. We could see a trend that most customers only did a couple of waves set up. So we added patch groups to this release. So you can just have one or two or three patch groups where you add in your apps, and it will inherit the settings from the patch group instead of you need to set up individual waves for the apps. So it will be a lot easier to maintain your application patching, so you can group it, and especially if you're an MSP, you can go in and you get a new customer, just add the new customer's tenant to the wave design, and it's fixed for all the applications in one go. But also, just as a single customer, it will mean that for maintenance, if you need to change an assignment or something, there's only one place to do that. So quite important update in my view. It's going to make it easier to maintain all your patching. Patch group is also available for the really big thing in this release, which is Robopack Radar. And Radar is quite simple. It can scan your tenant for known applications. So all the packages you already have in Intune, it can scan and map to Robopack repository applications and set up the patching automatically. It can also scan your discovered apps. So anything that's on the endpoints, we can take into consideration and offer you to do patching of those also. So that's the big thing in this release. And finally, we have added a bunch of small updates. One important thing is rollback. So on the waves now, you can see that I think it states import specific version. You can go back to an earlier version, and it will follow the wave design for the rollback also. So that's the three main features of this release.
I mean, they're pretty useful. Certainly, radar on patch groups and rollback I've heard customers ask for in the past, so they're pretty useful. Magnus, would you mind doing a short demo of, I assume, at least radar and patch groups? Just show us how that actually works in production.
Yes, thank you. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate our new features in the latest release of Robopack. So we'll start out with Radar, and as Ronnie explained, this is our way to scan your tenant for applications that are not being managed by Robopack. So we select a tenant, we scan it, and we're presented with a list here. Now, these applications in the test environment here, these are Intune apps. So that means they're applications created in Intune, but they aren't being patched by Robopack. Now, discovered apps will show up in the same way, and they're actually merged. So if they're both, you see them as one entry here. Then for applications that are discovered, you're able to see exactly what devices they have been discovered on. So here you can go and investigate. Is it only IT who have this application? Do we want to patch it, or do we feel like they can handle the updating themselves? This information can be exported as well. So if you want to keep records or you want to look through it, you can download a CSV file with all these applications. So now we say we have a couple we want to patch. So there's a few options. If you have a single one, you want to create an update flow for one application. Well, then you can click on patch flow here, and then you're able to set it up manually as you would through instant apps or Robopatch when setting up an update flow. But the more exciting new feature is tying into our patch groups. Now I'll show details for a patch group in a bit, but for now, let's select a couple here. So we say these three we want to add to a patch group that we have already created. If we go ahead and do this, and then go to the patch group, we can see that we have our 3 applications we just added now, and we have 2 from earlier. Now, patch groups is a way to manage multiple applications that share a common deployment goal. So what this means is that with the classical patch setup and Robopatch, you define your waves for an application, how the application should be deployed, what targets it should be deployed to. And then Robopatch will follow that when there's a new version, copy the waves and proceed with the same deployment. Patch groups takes that and unifies it so that you define waves in the patch group rather than the individual updates flows. And then the waves you define in the patch group apply to all of the applications within it. This means that if you have a standard for setting up your flows, you can put that into a patch group. And so you don't need to specify the waves every time you add a new application. Instead, you can choose to add an application to a patch group or add it from Radar. This also includes editing. So if you have a patch group with deployments that are in progress and you edit the waves, then those deployments will be updated to match the setup. So if you decide that you want to add a group to a wave deployment and you edit the patch group, then all the associated deployments will be updated as well. So this is a way to have it be simple to manage the applications. One more thing I would like to show off, which is another new feature related to this, is if we go and edit a deployment, you can see here it tells us that this is part of a patch group, so we can't actually edit the waves for this deployment unless we say we want to remove it. This is just so you don't risk getting the waves for a deployment out of sync with the patch group. But the other thing we've added is with Robopack previously, you were able to, of course, select a group from a tenant that you want to apply applications to, the target that you specify. The new feature is that you're able to create a new group as well. Now, if you create a new group assignment, you have to select the tenant as before, and you have to select what type of assignment type. But then instead of selecting an existing group, you provide a naming template for the name of the group to be created. The reason we've chosen to do it this way is that the whole part of the idea with the group creation is to use it with patch groups. And with patch groups, obviously, you would want the groups to be named after the application rather than the patch group. You don't want in most normal cases, you wouldn't want one group for the Entra group for the entire patch group. So here you're able to indicate how the group should be named. And then once this deployment runs, it will generate the name based on the template, and it will create the group and create the assignments for the group. Unless the group already exists, in which case it will reuse it. So it only creates the group once. This combined with the patch groups makes it so that you can set up your flow to also create groups for assignment if you prefer to have groups for every application.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to keep up with all the questions we're getting on the different channels. I'm putting them into a little sheet for me to ask shortly. But you touch on some of the capabilities of that new feature. Surely there's more that we're looking to do in the future as well. It's great what we've got so far. So it can do more than that in the future, right? What's the short-term roadmap for Radar?
Yes, so we're planning to add within a month from now what we call Radar V2. And this first part of Radar is for you to be able to manually go through and select the applications you want to update. And the feature we'll be adding to the new version of Radar is our automatic update of applications. What this means is that you'll be able to set up Robopack to continuously monitor discovered apps in the background. And then, assuming that they are part of an application you are patching, automatically assign devices where these apps are discovered to a group that requires the installation of the application patch by Robopack. So this will let you patch applications that were installed from outside of Robopack, which is a problem that every administrator faces, is that applications have been installed from outside Intune, and we need to be able to make sure that they are the latest versions.
Okay. So thank you for that. So we promised a live Q&A, and unfortunately we haven't got the two channels live in order to ask questions on LinkedIn. Apologies for that. But now we've seen some features, it's probably about time we did the actual question and answer. But before we look at the questions that I've picked up from the audience, I wanted to ask Steve, based on your experience of Radar so far, because you've been using it a little while, how do you see this being used in organizations that you work with?
Well, I mean, I think what's great here is, the feedback I always get about adding a third-party patching tool such as Robopack is, it's great, all of its capabilities are there, but it seldom goes into a greenfield Intune environment, right? It's what we call like brownfield. Let your imagination figure out why. But, you have apps that already exist, right? You have various sources. So the biggest challenge folks have is, how do I take what I have and start kind of getting everyone in line? So I think with this, it's the first I'm seeing of something taking a very proactive approach, right, to getting a hold on everything and saying, listen, let's start looking for what you have and get it in line, right? Because that's the hardest part for folks, right? A tool can do amazing things, but if starting to use it in a way that's productive and makes things efficient can be a challenge. So for me, I think this just makes folks looking to onboard, their tenant into Robopack and start, patching their apps. This makes it an easier transition for them.
I mean, I always thought Robopack was an easy tool to get up and running pretty quickly anyway. But you're right, this taking those applications that you've already
Yeah.
got. I guess in my perspective, I've always worked just from a lab environment or with smaller customers who were. But you're right, for large organizations, having
Yeah.
that in massive list of applications that you need to start working with. Yeah, I guess that's probably gonna really help.
Yeah, I work with messes, right? So, and it's never the tool; it's the folks and the procedure. So, if we can clean that up, that's great.
Great. Okay, so we've been receiving lots of questions on YouTube, so thank you to everyone who's asked a question. I will pick those up in a moment. I'm not going to ask these questions that I've already got from customers who already emailed in and asked me directly. I'm not going to ask them directly at someone, but I will pick on you if it looks like you haven't been speaking very much. The first question is, how is the information gathered? Because you demonstrated it there, Magnus, but how is it? Are we putting an agent on these devices these days, or is there some kind of magic that goes in and gathers that information from a device.
So yeah, we do not use an agent. Agents have a bit of a bad rep these days, and for good reason, because they introduce a lot of complications in how you make sure that the agent is installed on all target devices and the agent's up to date, and you need to verify the agent communicates with Intune and the backend and so on. So we are leveraging the discovered app functionality in already present in Intune to discover these applications. And this means that it is already a feature that's set up and working, so every customer will already have this information available in their Intune. There's no discovery period that needs to be run in order for Robopack to figure out this information. We can start immediately with getting a basis for what applications you want to set up to deploy.
Awesome, thank you. So the next question that I was asked to ask was, can I export a list of all apps that aren't managed by Robopack? I think you actually did demonstrate that, and that will just you did demonstrate that, right? I did see that.
Yeah, I didn't show the resulting file, but exporting the data will give you a list of all applications, both those that are already being patched by Robopack, but also those that aren't. So you get the full overview and you can filter that data as you see fit.
Excellent. And I think that might link into the next question, which was asked, why does the list disappear every time I move around the screen? So I experienced it myself. Actually, I didn't know what they meant until I went and tried it. And when you click scan Intune and then you go and do something else in the portal and go back, the list is gone. So I guess you could have exported it and have the list there. Are you meant to scan Intune every time? Is that how it's meant to work?
So for our initial release of Radar, we wanted it to be as fast as possible. And one benefit, you're quite correct that Robopack doesn't persist this information. So if you go out of Radar and you come back, you have to choose to scan it again. However, the scanning process is so rapid that it shouldn't be a problem under normal circumstances. And of course, the benefit here is that you're always viewing up-to-date data. With the with Robopack V2, and as I explained, we'll be doing continuous monitoring in the background. At that point, of course, we will be caching the data so that it will be immediately available, since Robopack will need it in the background in order to perform these actions anyway. But for now, we thought we'd keep it simple and have a kind of, it's a very logical way of handling it, where you go, you scan, then you see the result of that scan, not one you previously did. So yeah, it was.
I guess it makes sense that it's live data, right?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
literally has collected it there and then. So that's good. Question from the stream then. So I think I can do that. How can I move an app from Robopack Flow to a patch group, or do I have to recreate it?
Yeah, so that's something we'll be adding very soon. Currently, you're not able to add an existing flow to a patch group. The reason why we've held on a bit on that feature and we'll be adding it as an update, not Robopack V2, but before then, is because it's a little complicated in order to make sure that the patch group is coherent. Now, what I mean by that is that when you create a patch group, you specify some settings for the applications you want to patch using it. You specify the platform. Is it 64-bit, 32-bit? In the future, we'll have ARM support. And you specify if you want it to be a machine scope installation or a user scope installation. And Robopack uses this information to pick the appropriate installer for the applications that you add to the patch group. Now, that's one issue when you're adding an existing deployment, an existing flow to a patch group. Either you want to ignore that it doesn't match what the patch group is, or you want to allow that there are multiple types of applications being patched in the same flow. So we're still figuring out the best way to mitigate those things. And the other thing that you might run into when adding an existing flow is if the waves in the existing flow does not match what is in the patch group, then you need to make some decision about how to handle that. Do you want to just override it with what is in the patch group? So for now, you cannot yet add existing flows. What you can do is you could remove the flow and then go in and add the application to the patch group, and then that will set up the flows.
Okay, I'm really trying to keep up with all these questions. The next question was, and I actually took me a while to try and figure out what exactly was being asked, but I think I have figured it out now. So the question was, if there's an application that isn't installed via Intune, for example, Patch for PC have an update application that looks at the applications that are installed on the computer and allows you to patch that. That's a feature we've got, isn't it? That's built into Radar, right?
Yes, so it's built into Radar and that you can see these applications. Now I'm not 100%. I'm not so familiar with the other solution they're referencing and how that works in detail. But this release of Radar will not continuously scan for new installations of an application. So that's what's coming with V2, where it will continuously ensure that installed applications that are detected of something being patched that was installed from outside Intune will automatically be added to groups that ensures that it's the Intune managed version that is installed on the devices.
Great. Another one, which was, is there a way to push an uninstaller to apps that I don't want to have in my environment? And this was asked on LinkedIn a little while ago. Is that possible? Is that coming? I know, Ronnie, I know you said we'd add it to the roadmap, but how far off is that? Is that something we want to do?
It's certainly something we have planned because it's been requested by people. I'm not entirely sure of how it's prioritized in the roadmap. Maybe Ronnie can elaborate on that, but it is something that we will be adding.
We are certainly looking into that. I would prefer not to set a date on it right now, but we will release it on our webpage when we have it available or planned.
Great. And just for my own knowledge, it is possible to use Robopack to push an uninstaller, though, isn't it? It's just this automated way of using it to detect existing applications and automatically remove them, right? That's the thing that's on the roadmap. But it is possible to create an uninstaller for an application.
It is
right?
possible. However, I think we would go towards a solution where if all you want is an application uninstalled, then we would do it in a slightly different way. Because if you go to choose now to set up a Robopatch flow that only uninstalls, that's certainly possible to do. However, that will include creating the application and uploading the installers to your Intune, yet having it there and only doing an uninstallation. There's nothing technically wrong with that, but we might want something more, directed towards specifically uninstalling, where it's an installation script that just removes any instances of the application found. Of course, if you later change and you want to also have it install, then that might make sense. But yeah, you certainly can now create a flow that only does uninstall.
If you make a package to a group and a patch group to all users in Wave 3, will it only patch to the users that have the app, or to all users?
Yeah, so if you set a target that requires the application for all users, then all users will get it installed. So the targeting with the groups set up in Robopack is one-to-one the targeting that will be set up when they're created in Intune. So if you set up a required group for all users, then once that wave is reached, all users will get it installed. the more limited scope patching of only devices that already have an older version of the application, that's what's coming in Radar v2, where Robopack will be able to handle that in the background. But for now, you should be aware that the deployments you create, the targets you create in your waves, those are what will be created in Intune. And so if you select all users, then all users will get it.
Makes sense. Okay. So I'm catching up with the chat now. Just to a bit of housekeeping, this will be recorded. It is being recorded. It'll be published on LinkedIn afterwards, and also on YouTube immediately within a few minutes of it being of the live being finished. It'll be available. But we will tidy it up, increase the volumes, do everything that we can to make it a better recording and release it on YouTube officially. Some people are saying, Magnus, for some reason you're a little hard to hear. That could be. I think we might just be able to turn your volume up a little bit. Daniel asked a question about the uninstaller. That's good. We've covered that. So a good. I'll bring this up because all questions are valid questions. This one is from Rico. So Discovered Apps has a 7-day delay before the sync is running. Do you feel that's a problem?
Generally, no. The main reason, we are aware, of course, of the fact that Discovered Apps is a slower process than a lot of stuff Intune does. But what's important to remember is that the Discovered App patching functionality that we'll be adding in v2 is only relevant for installations that were not made through Intune. So any installation made through Intune will be updated immediately with the supersedence and the group assignments. So when we were considering the various options for handling automatic patching of non-Intune managed devices, we considered that this delay is acceptable, since in most organizations you do not expect to have to deal with a lot of devices that have had applications installed from outside the company standard. It is, of course, a trade-off.
Great.
But we feel like that trade-off was worth making.
Perfect. Okay, good. While I gather another question, I have a question that I hear a lot from customers. Not a lot, but enough from customers, which is actually my favorite question. So, is Robopack just creating a problem to solve? Like, why can't we just have people use Winget? Doesn't that like auto update apps anyway? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are a bunch of different script packages and tools around that do exactly that. That simply run Winget on a schedule to update anything present on the device. Now that can work fine, but it's a solution that's difficult to manage, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But one of them is that it's difficult to get a good overview on what applications are out there and what versions they are and when they've been patched. So while we do utilize Winget in Robopack in order to populate our application library, one main difference is that a Winget application through Robopack is downloaded and verified and analyzed by Robopack before it's uploaded to the Intune tenants. And that's a significant difference, because these scripts, they rely on the Winget executable on the end devices in order to download and install the update. And that, for instance, means that all devices at the same time might not necessarily get the same version, because Winget will always pull the latest version. So it's very difficult to know what versions different devices have at the same time. Whereas with Robopack, it's created centrally. You can see the application present in Intune in applications. You can see what devices are in scope and have succeeded the installation. And additionally, with the checks that Robopack perform on applications before they are uploaded to the tenants, we're able to catch a lot of errors which might potentially break an application installation on a client when Winget tries to run it if there's some sort of issue with it. So we like to think of it such that we add a bunch of layers of management and security on top of the Winget repository when you're using Winget, because of course we also support apps from the Microsoft Store through Instant Apps and Robopack in addition to Winget.
Magnus, you said real quick. You said security. I mean, I think if we zoom out for a second, I think that's the theme, right? Nobody wants to patch apps because they want to patch apps, right? It's not a it's not an academic thing. I think the perspective, and I see this a lot more lately. Everyone's looking for a solution to respond to threats, right? And that's where this is all going. So I think this is a great step forward in, you can't stop something you can't identify, and operationally to have something central that you can understand what's in your environment is very, very powerful. And I have seen a lot of work in like the merger acquisition area where someone's inheriting a company and they have no idea what's on those devices, be it that they were installed from Intune or another solution. So to be able to have something to say, let me get good optics and good visibility on what's in this environment I'm inheriting, to me that makes it really, a powerful step to start, you know, securing it from a centralized perspective. That makes sense. So that's how I see it.
Great. So on that topic, and I know you didn't touch on it, I'm going to make you touch on it. There's a question which is, are the applications verified/virus scanned? And I think verified/virus scanned, they're very different things, obviously. I mean, what would we verify? And the other caveat I'll give to that question is, which virus scanner would we use for if we were to virus scan it at all? And I know you can touch on maybe that we do. I'm sure we do, but there's also the question of after it's uploaded. So it's uploaded in a couple of stages, isn't it? It's uploaded to Robopack from Winget. It's uploaded to Intune from Robopack. So there's a couple of different things there. So I think we need to be specific about when any additional security is taking place. So could you touch on that for
Yeah,
me?
so we have a couple of different, I guess an important distinction is between instant apps that come from a repository and custom applications that you can upload to Robopack. Of course, both are places where we focus on security. So for instant apps, we depend on, in part, the verification already existent in Winget. And this is through the Microsoft verification of all new versions that are added to the repository. Now, we perform the same kind of verification that Winget itself does when you download an app from there, which is that the Winget manifests contain a path to an installer to download, and they contain a hash value of that installer. So just like Winget itself, we verify that before we take any further steps when importing an application from Winget. Now, in addition to that, we do an antivirus scan, as any solution would do. But then we perform some additional step as part of the instant app analysis, where we run an installation of the application with the arguments that were relevant to it to make sure that it will correctly install and be detected and uninstall. Now, those checks in themselves aren't specifically security related, but they are still a help, because that makes it clear that if there's some problem with the installer that causes it to not work correctly, that will be picked up by the additional analysis. Now, for uploaded applications, we don't have the first step, but because of course you can upload whatever you want to Robopack. So for a custom application, we still run the antivirus scan, we still run the installation analysis, unless you've chosen to disable that, which you can do for uploaded applications. And then that information is presented in the app documentation feature, where you can see whatever the installer did when it was installed, and so on.
So Thank you for that. That kind of helps. But I also want to make sure that we answer a question that I got, which was maybe not the exact one that just got asked there, but do we, when we push it to Intune, when we install it, we run it on that virtual machine, do we run an antivirus scan on that one? And I had to ask a clarification question when I was asked that question. Which antivirus would you like us to run? Because there's lots of different ones. And I worked in a security company. I still work in a security company for running training courses. And there's lots of false positives with regards to security. So which one do we trust to be giving the right false positive or the true positive? That's a very complicated thing to do. And so the fact that we don't do it makes us more reliable as an application packaging solution, not a security solution, but as an application packaging solution. But the first wave could go to your, it does normally go to your devices, your test virtual machines or your test devices, which will run your antivirus that you trust and that your security team have signed off on. So I don't think Robopack needs to add an antivirus scan and all those additional security things after it's been tested for being uploaded. I don't think that's needed.
Yeah, sorry, I can add that we do run the antivirus scan initially. And whenever we subsequently do anything with the application, whether it be an uploaded one or one from Winget, we always run integrity checks on the installers to make sure that they are identical to what was scanned previously. So there isn't any chance of the installer having been tampered with after the analysis had been run.
Yeah, I think it's not one. I think it's not one dimensional, right? Like you were saying. So that having that first wave is super critical because it goes both ways too, right? It's not just checking the integrity of the app, right? It's every org is different, so you might be using a security solution that is detrimental to the app in some way or prohibits something, right? So whether it be for the app integrity or how it works with your system, yeah, I think looking at it from the perspective of organizing those waves and having that control should be just part of your operational process as a Intune admin, right? With Robopack integrated. So yeah.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Steve, for adding that. Another couple of things on YouTube that I'll just quickly show on the stream. It would be cool if Robopack was to add known vulnerabilities to the versions detected by Intune. Is that coming?
Yes, that is coming. We're planning a NIS module where all of the versions discovered, both in as applications you currently have in Intune, but also as the discovered ones, are referenced with known exploits, so it's able to highlight those that are more critical to get patched immediately. Now, obviously, you want to generally have everything be the latest version, but this will give you an overview if there are some that are more critical than others and should be prioritized. That's something we're coming with in the first half of 2025.
Awesome. We're coming to the end. I think we're a few minutes over, but we did start a lot late, so I'll apologies for that. One final thing from Daniel, a bit left field, but with the rise of attacks through browser plugins, have Robopack considered covering plugins to scan and secure these, etc.?
So currently, that would not. I just. I'm assuming this question is regarding browser plugins on client devices as opposed to devices that are using Robopack. That's not something that's currently in scope for Robopack. It's definitely something we could consider. The difficulty is that those plugins are not deployed using applications. They're not deployed through Intune. At least that would be an unusual way to deploy browser add-ins. So what you would be looking for here is some kind of solution that can determine what browser plugins are installed on client devices and remedy those that aren't up to date or are compromised. And for now, with Robopack, where we want to avoid having an agent on devices, that is out of scope, since that's not something you can currently realistically manage through Intune.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today, guys. That is all we have time for on this occasion. If you are interested in a one-to-one demo, please reach out to us via the website. But you don't need to get a demo if you don't want one. If you want to see all this working for yourself, then there's a completely free trial available. If you just go to the website and click on the free trial, it's a fully functioning version of Robopack for you to just try out and see if what we've said and done in this demonstration actually works for your environment. We will also be attending some great events this year. Experts Live UK tomorrow, Experts Live Denmark in March, Modern Endpoint Management Summit over in Paris in April, Workplace Ninjas UK in Edinburgh in June. There's more, but we'll be here all day. Lastly, thank you to Ronnie, Magnus, and Steve for taking us through that demo and answering those relatively tricky questions. Thank you for that. We would love to do this again. We will do this again. A couple of the questions that I didn't put on the screen were, can you do this again? We'd love to do this every day. This has been really good fun for me, apart from the really stressful bit at the start, as you can imagine. We would love to do this more often, so we definitely will do. Until then, we'll see you all next time.